What are the significant contributing factors to why suicide is such a prevalent problem for men?
I'm glad you brought up Susie Bennett. It makes me laugh because every podcast I do, her name's brought up, and I'm so proud it is. But suicide. I'll do her. I'll say what she would say, and it's like no suicide is ever the same. Every suicide is unique to every single man. And the brutal truth of suicide is that we don't really know why men do it. Like you talk to bereaved families, and they'll have no idea why their father or son or brother ended their life by suicide, and that's why it's so tragic. So I want to start by saying there is no one single answer. There's only a multiplicity of answers that intersect together. But overall, I would say suicide is, for men especially, is too much placed within the man's head. Like we see it as an internalized problem, some sort of medical issue, some sort of chemical imbalance to be medicated away, or some sort of mental health problem to be talked about. And although those things can be useful for some men, overall, research is showing us that men who are suicidal don't consider themselves as having a mental health problem. They have a problem that's out there, external, structural, and they can't really do anything about it. It can't be medicated away. It can't be spoken about. It will be things like debt or joblessness or experiences of abuse or experiences of childhood trauma or bullying in school. It will be so many different, a lot of it, for example, is tied to child custody. I've heard data saying that 1 in 5 suicides in the UK of men is linked to relationship breakdown and child custody battles. And there is just a huge cohort of men fighting for their children, so fathers, and fighting a losing battle against a sexist family court system. And a lot of them turn to suicide. They're not mentally unwell. They've just lost their child. And in fact, they're responding in a way that actually makes a lot of sense. So I'd say in general, we need to stop seeing suicide as an irrational decision based on some sort of mental health problem, and start to understand suicide as a rational, solution-based outcome for many men who are trying to solve a problem of which they can't control, and they've got no choices left. So it's very much out there, and it highlights a very important generalized difference between how we look at women and men's issues. For men's issues, we say, for women's issues, for example, we say, the problem is out there in society. We need to change society. For men's issues, we only ever say he needs to change himself. And until we start seeing men in the same way as women, the victim of issues that they are not fully in control of, structural sexism, then I don't know what we can really do for male suicide. A lot of it is revolving around this idea of like talking more, which I appreciate and agree with, and I encourage. I'm going to one of his groups today, actually. But I don't think that's a complete solution at all. I feel like the solution happens next, where those groups and those charities then have to talk themselves about the things that men are telling them. Like, for example, 11% of men who are being abused in the UK will attempt suicide. That is a massive problem when you consider 3 million male victims of abuse. If one of those men goes to a talk group and tells the people there, like, I'm being abused, there's nowhere for me to go, there are no shelters, I call up the abuse helpline, they think I'm a predator, no one believes me, the police hang up the phone. If that charity, listening to that man, doesn't then go on to advocate for greater support for male victims of abuse, more shelters, more funding, a fundamental change in the way in which police handle abuse against men, then that charity is not doing enough, in my opinion. Like, it's not good enough to just give men a place to speak. We need to give men a place to speak and for us to listen, and hopefully society to change. So we're doing good work within male suicide, but nowhere near enough. And it's about time we moved along.